welcome everybody. Let's talk real estate. Your weekly BS with Barry Saywitz about the current commercial real estate market here in Southern California. As we take a no BS look at both sides of the issues driving this market today to find the best solutions going forward. With our man right in the middle, it's Barry Saywitz. Hey, Barry.
Hey, good morning, Paul, and good morning to all of our viewers and our listeners out there. I am Barry Saywitz, president of the Saywitz Company and managing partner of Saywitz Properties. Welcome everybody back to another edition of Let's Talk Real Estate. Today is Tuesday, January 21st, as far as I know, 2025. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got a lot of stuff to celebrate or acknowledge. First, I want to give a shout out to the Ohio State Buckeyes for winning the national championship. A job well done, and certainly beat some very good teams out there. Second is we want to give congratulations to the new president, Donald Trump, who is now officially in office and already taking swift action on a multitude of items. And so we hope and cross our fingers for a positive direction for the company in many respects. So congratulations to him. And we do want to continue to express our sympathy and our thoughts and our prayers for the people who are dealing with the fires in Los Angeles. I know that there are charity concerts where tickets go on sale. There are all kinds of outreach from businesses and organizations and people all over the Southland and all over the country, really, to try and help out these folks who are affected. And so, our thoughts and prayers go out to you. And so, with all of that said, I'm excited to welcome our guest, Rochelle Mills, who is the president and CEO of Innovative Housing Opportunities, or IHO, as an acronym goes, based here in Orange County in Santa Ana. Rochelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I appreciate you coming on. Your business today deals with creating opportunities for affordable housing. I guess that's the best general description of what you guys do. But before we talk about what you're doing in today's world, I want to take a rewind and go back to the beginning, because you are a long veteran of many things, teaching architecture, construction, real estate, nonprofit, etc. Let's go back just a couple of years, but to where it got started. How did you get into the professional world? And it seems like it started out with an architecture background.
Yeah, I went to architecture school at Washington University in St. Louis. And when I graduated, I came back to Los Angeles and worked for small independent design studios. We did mostly high-end single-family residential housing. My husband and I had met in architecture school, and so he and I were working at the same studio. But most of the architects that I worked for didn't have much business savvy. So as soon as our projects were done, we were usually unemployed. And so we had to come up with a second gig. And for me, I need to be inspired. And so I would go see work by architects who I admired and contractors whose work I admired, and then we would convince them to allow us to bring a group of devotees with them. And so we started a company called Architours. A lot of our clients were museums, art collectors, those who had an interest in design and the built environment. And the way it worked was that most of our tours were done in warm states, the US and Canada, around winter. And then our residential work, our design work, was in construction during the summer. Because I was involved in cultural tourism at a time when the city of Los Angeles was starting to market itself as a cultural destination, the Getty was under construction, the concert hall, so many monumental buildings, then I remember the council member, Mark Ridley Thomas, contacting my mother and saying, you need to get her engaged in the tourism, LA's Convention and Visitors Bureau. And so I started working there, and when LA put its marketing package together, I wrote the itineraries for the art, architecture, landscape design, marketing the city of Los Angeles.
Oh, interesting. And so that was really at a time where there was lots of growth, right? And then combining the cultural aspect with real estate development, with the entertainment industry, and then business as a whole.
Absolutely. And one of the things, because I was engaged in that, and also living in the Crenshaw district, a predominantly black community where there's so much interest in Leimert Park becoming a cultural destination. I was asked to be a part of the area planning commission and the design review board. Excuse me, the design review board in the Crenshaw district. And so I started to get engaged in community development, community planning, and those kinds of things. Over time, I have a sister and husband, her husband, who are also in the design field. They had a contract to oversee construction of HUD properties. And so they asked if I would oversee some of their senior housing and special needs housing for developmentally or physically disabled. And so I thought, why not? I can certainly do that. In that same time, I was doing some teaching and some editing. I was an editor of the LA Architect, which was the newsletter at the time of the American Institute of Architects LA chapter, and I was doing some teaching and
So I
tourism.
saw you did teaching at UCLA. Right?
UCLA Extension and
Go
Otis
Bruins.
School of Design. Yep. And so all of those things kind of it kept my job from being boring and kept dinner on the table. And I was doing one of the projects that I was doing inspections for happened to be for a nonprofit developer called Irvine Housing Opportunities. They had been around for 30 years and had one property in the Woodbridge community of Irvine, Woodbridge Manor, and they were doing the final renovation and an addition of 15 units to make it 165 units, and I came in and oversaw the construction. And at the end of that project, the board came to me and asked if I wouldn't mind staying on and helping them determine if they want to become a full-fledged developer and add to their portfolio, or did they want to sell the one asset and become a foundation. And so I felt, this will be something else I can add to my list of things to do. They say that you've got 7 careers, and this would be career number 6. I don't mind doing that for a couple of years. And so that's what I did. I stayed on as a member of Irvine Housing Opportunities staff, expecting that I'd be there for 2 years. And here it is 19 years later.
Yeah, funny how that works, right? You get sucked
Yes.
in and you can't get out.
Yes.
And so today, the, I guess, next generation of Irvine housing is really IHO, right?
Right.
It is the same in concept organization that it was previously, but you're now onto a wider geographical area, not so
Yeah.
much tied to Orange County or Irvine.
Exactly. One of the things that stayed with us is the feeling that we want to have a continuum of housing, meaning we would love people to come in, and those who are able, because everyone isn't, but those who are able, we would love to get them to the point where they can move on. We say move in, move up, move forward, and reach back. We really want people to move into our housing, get trained and upskilled, and whatever, if we can help them create new habits. I say it this way: we deliver habitat, but we also work on habit. If we can help them upskill so that they can move on,
Yeah.
then that means a unit is available for the next family.
Yeah, and also you've helped the family that's in there
Absolutely.
really get to a place that's different and hopefully better than when
Absolutely.
they started, right? Which is different than just, here, I got a place to live, here you go, here are the keys, and either
Yeah.
you pay me or the state pays me or whoever's paying me.
For us, we don't consider it success in the sense of bragging about. If somebody is still in subsidized housing 30 years later, if they have the means, physically, mentally, etc., to move on, we want them to move on.
Yeah.
A lot of our colleagues, affordable housing is gorgeous. It's usually the most beautiful housing in the neighborhood. A lot of times it's in wonderful neighborhoods, and so you can get caught in, the fear of moving out, because the delta from an affordable subsidized rent to the marketplace is quite a jump.
Right, and secondly, if I get comfortable with where I'm at, I really don't and this doesn't apply to everybody, but there's a certain number of people. I have no incentive
Absolutely.
to change. I got a good gig. Why would I go someplace else?
Absolutely. And that's why we distinguish ourselves by really wanting to encourage mixed income housing. We believe that you end up emulating the behavior of those who you admire. If everybody in the building is unemployed, undereducated,
Yeah.
then you end up relearning bad habits. But just like I'll say it this way, because I know some people are already upset with that characterization. I remember when my daughter was in school, there were a handful of parents who really seemed to have cracked the code. And when they left to go to another school, I remember just getting my daughter, I signed up to move her to the other school without even thinking about it, because I knew wherever they were going was a better place than just languishing.
Yeah.
I believe that with housing. If we have people who are all living together in, the spectrum of incomes, the spectrum of backgrounds and abilities, and you start to notice that your colleagues are moving on, then you ask about that, and that gives us an opportunity to say, you want to go on vacation? Let us work out a plan for you.
Yeah.
You want to buy a house? Let's work out a plan for you. So it's what we believe is that housing is that start. It's the launch pad for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, and that concept, I guess, for lack of a better word, sells better with the rest of the community than we're going to put a low-income project in my neighborhood, and maybe I don't want it, or why don't you put it in somebody else's neighborhood, or what's that going to do to my property values? There's a whole slew of misconceptions of affordable housing, right? I mean, I agree with you that some of these projects are nicer than the regular housing. There's no question.
I remember a funny story in the city of Irvine. We were doing a party for our residents. It was the 40th anniversary of that property, so we sent a letter out to all of the neighbors in the Woodbridge community, and I happened to be on site one day, and one of the neighbors walks up and he says, I heard that there's affordable housing coming in, and you just don't want it to tarnish this beautiful building and all of our property values. And so I said to him, do you realize that for 40 years this affordable housing property has been in your neighborhood, and your values haven't decreased? Without missing a beat, he says to me, why do these people get something as nice as that?
Yeah.
I mean, he went from, it's going to ruin the neighborhood to
now I'm
how
jealous.
come they're getting too much?
Yeah. And I mean, and for those folks out there that are not totally familiar with the nuances of the different aspects of affordable housing, right? Just to clarify, and you can do it better than I can, but there is what we call Section 8, which is subsidized housing, where the state or the government would subsidize a tenant's rent with a landlord or a developer, but it's not required that the entire project is to be affordable housing. Like, we have tenants that are on Section 8, and we rent to them no different than we rent to regular folks.
Absolutely. The way I would describe it, there's several layers of affordable housing. You've got, looking at the housing crisis that we have emergency shelters. You've got transitional housing. That's usually for a period of sometimes 9 months to 2 years. It may be for domestic violence. It could be for substance abuse, etc. And then you have permanent rental housing. Permanent rental housing is what IHO does.
Yeah.
That means that we're doing affordable housing that with the state and local subsidies that we might have, or federal subsidies like Section 8, the residents are not required, or the goal is that they're not paying more than 30% of their income. That's what the term affordable comes from. And so you've got, since I've joined this field in 2006, every couple of years there's some kind of course correction. It's the economy, it's tax credits have changed, it's the focus has moved from seniors to veterans, and now with the fire coming up, and you've got so many middle income and upper middle income folks, I'm expecting a severe course correction. And so all of those projects that we have had to modify so that they fit into the housing du jour,
Right.
if you will, are now going to have another course correction. That does give me pause.
Yeah, and we talked about it before we got on the air. The issue is you have to deal with not only the city, but the financing side of it, the development
Absolutely.
side of it, the public perception side of it, and then you've got to somehow make this deal pencil. I mean, these are not high margin, high profit deals, and they're not the luxury, sexy deals at the end of the
No,
day.
they're
It takes a
not.
certain mentality to really pull this off.
It takes sometimes up to 9 different funding sources to put a project together. And we're required, if we're using tax credits, for these projects to have that affordability covenant for 55 years. So we can't just put together something crazy. People are, aghast at the amount of money that is going into these units. But it's interesting to me because you've got the hopes and dreams of everybody has now factored into it, where we have to be the most energy efficient. In the city of Irvine, you have to actually exceed market rate standards. You need a
Solar
junior
panels,
Olympic swimming pool.
self-sustaining,
You
right.
need an exercise room, and you start to wonder: are we over amenitizing? Because the goal is to move people into housing quicker.
And get a roof over their
Get a
head.
roof
Not,
over their
not so
head.
much that they have a workout facility or a jacuzzi.
Exactly. And so I believe very strongly that people need to live in dignity. But we also need to realize that if we add too many bells and whistles, those are units that are coming off. And so, what is the goal here? And the more bells and whistles, the longer the project take, the more funding sources we need. And then the funding sources start to cannibalize because this source has a conflict with that source. The number of attorneys that are involved in a closing of an affordable housing deal would make your mind spin.
Yeah, it's probably a football team of them.
It truly is. I've counted on one call, there was more than 20 because everybody has 2 or 3 attorneys. And yes, they need that. But if the goal is to house our neighbors, then
Get to it.
yeah,
Right.
then peel
so
off
I,
some of
right.
those
So I want to
things.
dig in a little bit. I don't want to get too political and too crazy, but the fact of the matter is that we both know that these things take time. They have some political nature to them. They have some ego piece to them,
Yeah.
and on your end, it's a question of managing all of that to try and get to the end game, which is get the thing built. Right now, in today's world, if we fast forward, you have all kinds of pressure from Sacramento, from the governor, who's implemented these in many instances from words of the mayors of various cities themselves who've been on the show, unrealistic goals of what the expectation is to provide new or affordable housing, but they want you to try, right? And so there is motivation for each city to try and bring on new projects. Do you find that you're welcomed by the city, or that you're getting pushback from the city, or is it really on a case-by-case basis?
It's interesting. One of the challenges that I have with affordable housing is how tied to election and politics it actually is. Um, Again, we're going through devastating fires. There's no way the governor can't address that. And so that means that he's going to make a decision that is going to impact all of the projects that are already in the queue.
Yeah.
There's just no way around that. And every year, a couple of years ago, it was every year that a project is delayed, it adds another $1 million. I would actually say it's more than that, because now you've got other, the shortage of labor. You've got the
Construction
materials,
costs go
the
up,
construction
the
costs
attorney's
go up,
fees drag out.
the interest rate goes up and down. All of those things play in, and it's exasperating.
Yeah.
Every election cycle, you brace because you know whatever you've got in the pipeline that did not get funded runs the risk of being reimagined.
But it's interesting because we've had other guests on the show who have said, hey, you have no idea how many projects are getting ramrodded through, especially the city of Los Angeles. I mean, each city has its own thing, but LA really has one of the biggest housing shortages. for affordable housing, and that what they were saying is that the city's planning department and the city council are open to allowing projects to go forward with inefficient parking or inefficient open area just to be able to get the units to either
Yeah.
satisfy the governor or just say, hey, we're building X units, right? And more is better, even if it's a shoebox.
It's interesting because ED1 is responsible. That's the Mayor Bass's executive directive a couple years ago, really helped increase the number of projects that were permitted. I will say, looking at some of the ED1 projects that we've gone through, that the standards are so much lower than affordable housing. We have so many different agencies that are looking at the quality of work that we're doing. And it is a little disappointing to see that so many projects were built with the assumption that they could, fill them up with Section 8 voucher holders, and that they would be grateful to have units, because it's like building something that is subpar is simply subpar.
But at the same time, it is better than zero.
You
And
know
I'm not
what?
defending it. I'm just saying that is a reality of it.
I would actually challenge you on that, because so many of the ED1 projects are sitting vacant. Now, if the units were brought online and occupied, I would agree with you. But so many
And why do you think
ED1
that is?
projects are vacant. I'm trying to understand that. There are a lot, I believe that they were done as profit motivated, with, of course, the understanding that they would identify these Section 8 voucher holders, but there are a finite amount of Section 8 voucher holders. So the cash flow that they had built these projects that were based on doesn't exist.
Oh, interesting.
So they can't fill these with people who have vouchers, because most of the units in under ED1 are studios and ones.
Yeah.
A lot of the voucher holders have families.
Yep, I agree.
So, we have done this race to put the units out, but we're doing it without thinking about it. The people aren't at the table.
Yeah.
I would love to be at the table when these decisions are made. When someone decides that we're going to put a few thousand studios and one bedroom units together with no parking, or luxury units with swimming pools, I would love to have been at the table to say, you know what, we can find a medium
Right,
ground.
a happy medium.
And yeah,
Because it seems like the studios and the one bedrooms not only would be geared towards getting homeless people off the street because the roof is better than, nothing. But you're absolutely right. Anybody with kids, or even a husband and wife, you're not living in a studio forever.
yeah. And because it is targeting, people are looking for the quick dollar, they're designing them so that our middle class and families are designed out of the solution. And so when we talk about the silver tsunami, the graying of our communities, we have set ourselves up for failure, because there is no place for the new workforce to be created and to thrive and live in our cities. And so when I look at some of these ED1 projects that we have gone to see, can we take them and convert them from studios to 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms, the cost is prohibitive. And
Plus, you've reduced the number of units, which goes against the
Absolutely,
grain of
which
what the governor and maybe the mayor are trying
and
to do.
imagine the voter base would be irate at the fact that we're asking for money now to modify brand new buildings.
Right. No, I mean, it's certainly a conundrum. And then the other issue is you have a plan for somebody to come in at a certain level and then escalate. I feel like some of these projects, it's just, let's get a body in there and
Yeah.
get it filled, and we don't care if they were just released from prison or if they have substance abuse or mental issues. And now you're filling a very nice new remodeled building with people that really don't appreciate it at the end of the day, and now your maintenance costs as the owner
Yeah.
operator are through the roof, and your turnover costs, right?
Absolutely. That's another thing with affordable housing and publicly funded housing. We also have a requirement to put services in case management, which I argue is critically important for the habit part of it. The habitat is built,
Yeah.
but creating new ways of thinking and coping and growing, that's critically important. And in a profit motivated development, there is not that interest in doing that. I think that that is critical. I remember someone explaining to me, and I hadn't thought about it until that time. You're moving people who might have lived on the street for years, and you're moving them into something that is very secure, and you're asking them to trust you as you move them out. The anxiety of what if I move out and I lose my job. And so you need those kind of social services and case management to help people figure out that yes, those things may happen, but you've got the tools to take care of it. So there are things that I think with subsidized housing that really are valuable and you don't get with the market rate.
Yeah, no
property.
question. I mean, and we've made deals in different communities with agencies and organizations who say, hey, we have funding to be able to take people off the street and get a roof over their head, and then we will fund them for
Absolutely.
a period of time, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Right? My concern as a landlord is just in a regular deal is what happens at the end of that time if you don't do your job
Yeah.
to help this person be able to stand on their own 2 feet. They're going to either fall down,
Yeah.
or if they are unsuccessful in your program and then you kick them out or cut them off, then I have another turn again. And so as much as I want to help and I want to do the right thing and create opportunities for people, I have no way of knowing whether this person's going to be successful or not. And then
You
we have
really
other
don't.
instances where you bring people in, they don't change, and then they bring a bad element onto your very nice property.
Yeah, I would definitely say one of the benefits of affordable housing is the on-site property management. Just being able to have eyes on the property so that mayhem does not ensue.
Yeah.
It really does make a difference. And what I've found, talking about NIMBYs versus YIMBYs, when we can share with a community that they've got all of those guardrails in place, we actually don't have people challenging us for moving in because they recognize they're not going to have people standing around on the outside. We're going to keep the property clean. We've got programs that a lot of times the community will ask, can they participate in? And
Yeah.
so housing can be a community asset where all boats rise.
Yeah, no, I agree. So now in today's world, I mean, we have a new president, right? So there's all kinds of changes coming. The
Yeah.
bad analogy, but the winds are going to change, right? Let's hope the Santa
Yeah.
Anas are gone here in Southern California after today, which is what they say. We might even get some rain this weekend, which would be nice. But do you think that these is going to create more confusion, more delays, more shifts in how these projects are perceived, or will it create opportunity?
I can't say that there is no opportunity. I'm a little disappointed at the way the housing community is just so overwhelmed and beaten down by the prospect of a new leader in place. I believe every time that the elections happen and new folks come in, there's a great opportunity for us to tell another story, to find new allies. And if all of the allies have been working together and we haven't solved the problem, here's a new opportunity.
Right. I got a fresh set of ears.
Yeah,
to
you got a
talk
fresh
to.
set of ears. Let's make the case. But what we have to do is make the case using both the heart and the head. I think some people go deaf at the notion of the need. They see it. They see Leroy sleeping in the front of their yard. They know that the need is there, but they also know that they voted on 1.3 billion and Leroy's still in front of their home.
Yeah.
We have to manage the expectation. What we have the opportunity, though, is to talk about the cost-benefit analysis. People who move into a home are less likely. They're a lower drain on our emergency services, on our emergency services at the hospital, crime. There are just great benefits. We've got to tell the business story. We've got to tell an investor who might have a little bit of a social impact mindset, how this is also good business.
Yeah. And the
we're
tough
not
part
doing
is,
that.
well, and the tough part is selling it because you have high interest rates, right? You have banks still at lower loan to values, and you have alternative investments that may actually, at the end of the day, yield less paperwork, less drama,
Yeah.
and a higher yield. So if I'm just a simple investor and I don't have a purpose and a mission and a connection to it, it's a tough sell.
It really is a tough sell, but I love the way that you said that, because here's where a nonprofit developer can take that burden off of you. If you would like to do well with your wealth, we can take that administrative burden. There still is a benefit there. I mean, I tell people all the time, we are nonprofits. We're not nonprofitables. We still have to turn a profit, because we can't do this hoping, with our hand out all the time. And so to be able to align with someone who is not necessarily mission driven, but they'd like to get involved in that. That's the benefit that we bring. We bring the tax exemption. We bring the administrative know-how. We also bring the boots on the ground. We have the relationships with the cities, with the communities. So we can make that, we can bridge that gap so that you get a more modest return, but you get a return and you're doing good at the same time.
Yeah. And it's all good stuff. And so Paul's waving at me. We could go back and forth on this stuff all day. We've only scratched the surface. But I do think, in summary, it is a business issue. It is a social issue. It is a housing issue. It is a real estate issue. And it is unfortunately a political issue as well.
Yeah.
And balancing all of that, you have a tough road to hoe. And I wish you well in all of your challenges that you have in front of you. And I'm hopeful that with some of these new changes and as the economy goes forward, it creates more opportunities, certainly.
Well, thank you from your lips to God's ears.
Yeah. Well, and look, I don't think that there's anybody out there that doesn't want to see a new project in their community, regardless of it, that's a nice addition to the community that helps other people and is a balancing act that creates more affordable housing. The issue and the dilemma is, how do we do it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad there's people out there like you and like IHO that are trying to make it happen. So thanks for coming and
Well, thank
sharing
you for
your
having
thoughts.
us.
So with all of that said, the other thing I want to, so if people do want to find out more information about your organization, what is the website they can go to?
They can go to www.ihocommunities. That's ihocommunities.org.
Great. So, best wishes for a healthy, happy, prosperous new year for you, your family, your company. I am Barry Saywitz. We will be back here next week talking more real estate, making up some more stuff as we go along and trying to figure it out as we go. So for everybody out there, thanks for tuning in. For everybody here in the studio, thanks for helping us put this on again. We'll see you back here next week on Let's Talk Real Estate.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. You've been listening to Let's Talk Real Estate, your weekly BS with Barry Saywitz about the current state of the real commercial real estate market right here in Southern California. On Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio, streaming live from our studio here at the University of California Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation Center.